Warm greetings, everyone. On behalf of W4W Foundation, welcome to another session of Friday.Waters. The idea of Friday.Waters is to wet the Fridays with fun and yet get fruitful content for the better understanding about the water matters in different possible ways. Friday.Waters has water talkies, book reading, thesis club, water arts, and meet a maestro. Today, as we are discussing Friday.Waters book reading session, the focus of the book reading session is to bring author and authors who have written books, novels, comics, or other form of manuscript on the water matters in order to discuss with them the making of the manuscript and the issues around the subject they have covered. Besides bringing interest in water conversation, the session will also increase the outreach of the manuscript in the water networks as well as society at large. My name is Mansee Bal Bhargava, and today I shall discuss the making of the book, namely Water, the Essence of Life. And to do the honor, we have right now Jeff Camkin and Rajni Vohra, and I'm hoping that our third speaker, Hin Nini Thain, will also join. The book is published by Eco Civilization in 2024. And before I provide the basic details of the book, first let me welcome Jeff and Rajni for the session and also agreeing to really discuss the book on behalf of all the co-authors of the book. And before I invite them to speak on their first take or reaction on making of this book, I will really take a short time to just introduce briefly Dr. Rajni Vohra, who is an accomplished entrepreneur, humanitarian, trainer, writer, and marketing professional with over 20 years of experience across diverse sectors. She has previously served as country chair for Eco Civilization in India and currently also takes charge of curator of the projects and collaborations for Eco Civilization. Besides that, she has keen interest in gender, cultural diversity, and sustainable development goals. She has led impactful initiatives that empower communities and promote eco-civilizational values. I'm going to put on her detailed bio in the chat box. And for now, I'm going to introduce Professor Jeff Camkin, also in brief, and put the detailed bio in the chat box so that we can use the time for discussion. Professor Jeff Camkin is a multidisciplinary water, climate, and sustainable development specialist with qualifications in science and natural resources law, and with over 30 years of experience in water, fisheries, and agriculture governance, policy strategy, resource allocation, stakeholder engagement, research, education, and advocacy. Jeff's current affiliations include quite a number of actually organizations, namely University of Western Australia, Institute for Study and Development Worldwide, and ITHA Ricardo in Australia, Terra Ambiente and Recurses. It's difficult for me to pronounce. I hope I have pronounced it rightly. But Hidricos in Portugal, Myanmar Water Academy, and International Commission on Irrigation and Drainage Working Group. And just to name a few, Jeff has also designed and delivered new water education for participants from over 70 countries. He is co-founder and co-editor-in-chief of World Water Policy Journal, a platform to support the world's emerging water leaders and thinkers. So very similar to the way we are trying to work here as well at W4W. So thank you so much, both of you. I hope Nini joins very soon. But first of all, maybe an opening remark for especially we start with Rajni, and as I know, this is a culmination of some good work which has been done at the background. So over to you, Rajni, and then we'll take the details of the book later, but it's just opening remarks on making of the book.
So first of all, thank you so much, Mansee, for inviting me on this platform. And while we are speaking about opening remarks, so I'm just thinking whether I should be starting with the idea which led us to go for water book, or I should be talking about the challenges, or I should be talking about the contribution of all the contributors from worldwide and people like you who appeared as speaker and shared insight on our platform Eco Civilization. So I think it would be wise idea to start this conversation from the point which led us to write or to
Yes.
create would be a better word, because this is a contribution. This book has been contributed by multiple contributors. So we are just creators who compiled, who edited, and he brought it forward and distributed in the world. So as you know, Mansi, you have spent your entire life in this sector: water, water, water. People know you as water woman, and the topic of water has become extremely, extremely important nowadays, and especially after whatever happened in Bangalore a few months before. It must serve as a wake up call for all the Indians, because it can happen in any part of the India. And so given the situation of climate change, also international conflicts over water, water has become something we can't turn a blind eye to. And because this is something we can't shun away, we have been impacting by everything which is happening, kind of side effects of not taking care of water properly, mismanagement of water, be it droughts, floods, or changing pattern of precipitation. Besides this, Mansi, you must have noticed that in last few decades, there are many countries which are having conflicts, disputes over water for some time. Maybe at times their reasons seem so useless, and we wonder why they cannot sit together and have a discussion. Even within our country, you might have seen in Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, we have been fighting. So, as a matter of fact, the whole world seems to be battling with this water issue in some way or the other, directly or indirectly. And it's not just about a continent, country, or developing country like us, where we are still having this basic struggle for clean, potable water. And we are talking about basic sanitation facilities. And the important thing is with eco civilization. I'm sure you have seen the website of eco civilization. You will find
Yes.
that this is one of the tangible core values of eco civilization, is right to clean water to everyone. Secondly, among our five pillars of eco civilization, you will find there is land, being, society, relationships, consciousness, which are intertwined with water, directly or indirectly. So one cannot take out the element of water from this conversation, and all elements are deeply integrated. And somewhere it comes to our human consciousness. So somewhere it comes to how we are as beings. Somewhere it comes to what Mother Earth has given us and what we are doing with the Mother Earth. And also, as you know, that in the year 2022, we came out with our first book on circular economy when we held a series of webinars. So we always had this thing in our mind that when we are done with this series of water, we will definitely come out with a book on water also. Also, the fact that we always believe that whatever knowledge we gain, we believe in consolidating that knowledge so that that knowledge could reach out to maximum people and maximum people could take advantage of that. So, in a very nutshell, this has been the idea which led us to make a book, to create a book on water. And we are very happy that, as much as awareness we can spread around the world, we have been trying, and to a large extent, we have been successful also. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And also, thanks a lot to offer me the book when I met you in Pune. I read it with a lot of heart, and I'm very happy that you offered me this book. So it's with
Pleasure.
me on my hand. So I'm going to take it further and then reach out to Jeff to understand how did you engage Jeff in this whole idea. I understand there was a series of conversation which happened and which culminated into this book. When did you enter this whole, I will say collective?
Yes, it's actually nice to hear the background story because I wasn't aware of all of that.
Yeah.
I was a little bit late to the party, I guess. Over the last few years, our good friend Nini, who's not here yet, but hopefully will join us, and I have collaborated on a range of initiatives, developed some project proposals together, and Nini has made some contributions to World Water Policy Journal over that time, which is great. And she invited me as a presenter and a panelist for the Eco Civilization Year of Water event on legal rights for water, which was in May 2023. There was a fairly difficult time for me. I've been dealing with some life-threatening illnesses, and like most people in that situation, I was doing a lot of reflection about life, and one of the things I was reflecting on was about my career and what I'd contributed and whether it was useful, and what I'd learnt. And so this invitation seemed like an important opportunity to consolidate those thoughts, and to share some of the lessons that I'd taken from both my successes and my failures over that 30-odd years. And it was after that presentation that I was offered the opportunity to include a chapter in this book. So thank you.
Just briefly coming to Rajni, before I get the details of the book out here. Rajni, so how many sessions were conducted before you all sat together, or you had a preconceived idea that you are going to make a book out of it? Because I remember I was also one of the speaker in one of the sessions when I talked about water culture, spirituality, and its religious take. So I'm curious because I really miss the buzz of having a contribution in the book. So that way I'm filling up by having this session, to be honest. So over to you,
Yeah,
Rajni.
actually, that was very interesting part of our. Uh, it has been kind of part of our session that we generally have, uh, this way that we invite two, three, four speakers, even for circular economy also and for water also. We generally try to invite speakers from different domains with different subject matter expertization, and also the fact that we had around 12 webinar series, and our first and last series is always about culmination of all the knowledge insight that we gained across the year. And the first series is introductory, and in between we had those series wherein one of the speakers were you also, and we had very different interesting topics, be it the role of gender with water, especially for country like India, Asian countries, African continent. And then there were topics about culture, rituals, where you contributed a lot. I remember you presented some beautiful anecdotes related to your life also, and how water impacted you as an individual. And also we had conversations which were very scientific in nature, like on circular economy and the role of water, and water management practices. And experts like Jeff, they also shared their stories, their experience of working with different departments, and how they learned what can be improved, how things can be better. So everything. So in that way, we have enriched ourselves so much. Now it all depends on us, that how we use that knowledge in our lives. Yeah.
Yeah, very interesting. So coming to the basics of the book, I have already shared the link in the chat box, that because the book is available as open access, and it's published by Eco Civilization. What is interesting is that the book explores the profound significance of water in the world, examining its scientific, as you rightly mentioned, cultural, environmental, and spiritual roles. The book delves into water's essential properties and its presence across ecosystems, demonstrating how it's indispensable to all forms of life. And probably that's why the name of the book, Essence of Life. What was interesting for me personally when I was reading this book, and I was really trying to understand every author's background, because personally I'm very fond of biographies. I came across a book very similar to it, What Are the Essence of Life, by Mark Nimier, who is an associate professor of American literature and American history at the University of Paris. And the book is published in 2008 by Watkins Publishing. I am yet to read that book because I was focusing. So every month I have promised myself to read one book before the book reading session. So this month it was this book. This book is 256 pages long, and book has 20 chapters written in English with 20 authors from around the world. That's the beauty of a book. And most importantly, the language of the book is a citizen science language. So it's like a very easy, readable, and legible book, I must say. The book is broadly divided into 5 sections other than introduction and conclusion, and it starts with learning which is where I'm going to come to Rajni right away after I finish the description. Then the second part of the book is on water and society, and then water management and water as being. So that for me was very interesting, the way the book is really divided into different sectors, and it was so easy to read that actually one can read it as a novel. I mean, I think that's the beauty of really talking about such a complex system in a very simple way, and which is the need of the hour, because hard science often becomes kind of intimidating to many common citizens, and especially people like me who are doing transdisciplinary work. So while discussing the making of the book, I would now request Rajni to really take a dip into her own chapter, which is the title also, and also she talks about the learning, the sense of water. So Rajni, we would like to take a dip into your chapter first before we go further.
Okay, thank you so much, Mansi, once again, because you are especially talking about my chapter, and by no means I consider myself as an expert of water. I'm still on
All
that
of
phase
us are
where
learning.
definitely I am in a as a very beginner. I'm learning about water and learning from experts like you. So, like you rightly said, that this entire book is about essence, and my write-up focuses about the learning, and it
Hmm.
comes in almost in a very beginning of the book.
Yes,
So as
which is
the
what I
title,
liked actually. Yeah.
yeah,
I really liked because the learning comes in the beginning so that we know the essence of the book and then we go further. Yeah.
absolutely. So before I talk about my write-up, I would like to share one interesting anecdote. So I was giving my book to one of very important persons, one of very well-known person in India, and that guy, the moment I handed over, presented that book, he said, "Okay, what is the conclusion of your book?" I said, "Sir, you will have to read it. I mean, this is something I cannot tell you because actually there is no conclusion. This
Hmm.
book has been written from
As learning in the
multidimensional.
beginning. Yeah.
Absolutely. This book has been learning from multidimensional purpose. It has been written from social perspective, spiritual perspective, scientific perspective. How do I conclude a book like this? So every chapter itself is a new learning. It's a unique learning. So again, coming back to my contribution. So as the title of my chapter is A Sense of Water, a multifaceted journey through science, culture, society, where my writing reflects the learning journey which shaped my insight from all the webinars that we held. And I begin the chapter with my early childhood days when I was a primary school student, and where every teacher, be it our science teacher, geography teacher, or even Hindi teacher, they introduce water very differently to us. And society, interestingly, I grew up held a different view, diverse view, different perspective on water, because of different traditions, festivities that we hold in India, and which often left me very perplexed as a child. And an interesting anecdote that once we were told to perform any ritual, we were supposed to perform a puja, particular kind of worshipping, and we were
Hmm.
asked by our family priest to collect water from 40 different wells. And as a child, I was
Wow.
pretty confused. I said, how a water from one well is different from another? Why he has given us this task of collecting water from 40 different wells? So I was very astonished by this request. And how could all these things, that how water is so different for different people who come from different speciality, uh, that always left me very perplexed, at the same time very astonished. And I always wonder, in my writing also I have very clearly specified that as I grew up, and I met people like Violeta, I met people like you, and I understood about various aspects of life and water, and how these two elements are so closely connecting with each other. And that's how I have discussed with you that the series that we held, that covered different dimensions of life, covering, connecting with water. So we definitely explored rituals, cultural transformation, followed by mitigation measures, and we focused on gender roles. We talk about issues in African regions and the government efforts, Then there was one wonderful speaker from Spain, Elvira, who shared insights on circular economy and water management. We have an expert like Alice, who spoke about strategy for reducing risk around water. So I have highlighted all these key points in my book to convey the range of perspective that we covered. Also, let me also clarify that our book is descriptive in nature. It is not prescriptive in nature. Nowhere we tell you do this, do that. No, no, no. This is human intelligence. Everybody is wise enough to understand where this kind of situation leads them. So it is very descriptive in nature, and it brings together different viewpoints from various authors. So my article definitely doesn't end with a conclusion. Rather, it captures the journey, a path we have embarked on together. So though we have not reached the destination yet, but we move forward with the hope. So in a very nutshell, this is all about I have tried to cover through my writing.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I was going to read the chapter title since at some point in time, but I would like to invite Jeff about your chapter. Maybe you want to take a dip into your chapter and then we go further and learn a little bit more about how did you got into writing something which is really one of your favorite topics. Also, I read from your biography. So over to you, and then we take more from the book.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you. My chapter's called From Rights to Water to Rights for Rivers, and it's some reflections on how far we've come and how much further we need to go. As I said, the chapter is all about personal reflections and personal learnings. And in the book and the presentation that preceded it, I provided a few short stories from my own experiences over that 30 odd years, from early career developing plans for sustainable fisheries, and then sharing in the end some career limiting experience of efforts to save the Shark Bay pink snapper from extinction. So I'll go into that one a little bit because it's really instructive for me. So this fish stock, Shark Bay pink snapper, is genetically separate from the stocks of fish nearby, the same species. It's highly prized by recreational fishermen and it's highly susceptible to overfishing. Shark Bay in Western Australia also happens to be a highly valued World Heritage Area, which complicates things again. Preliminary estimates were that there were only 5% of the original biomass of this fish stock left. And it was my job to try and find a solution to this. To cut a long story short, over 6 months, I wrote 104 briefing notes for my department and for the minister with advice on the problem and what needed to be done. 104 briefing notes in 6 months. And so that gives you an idea of how contentious this issue was. It was in the papers and front page of the paper, probably, I can't remember. So after an extensive consultation, the fishery was actually closed in 1996. And this was the first use of the precautionary principle in recreational fisheries management in Australia, and as far as I can make out, probably in the world. But under pressure, the minister reopened the fishery. He was receiving pressure from local members, from local community. They were concerned about the impacts on their businesses, etc., all of which we'd advised beforehand. But the minister opened the fishery again pending further research over 12 months. That research was done and confirmed the original problem, and the fishery was closed again. 10 years later, the department won awards, public sector awards, the highest awards from the public sector for the recovery of the fish stock. And that recovery of the Shark Bay pink snapper is now recognised as a leading example of successful fisheries management. But for me, it was too late. I'd lost the confidence of the minister, and the fisheries management career that I'd always wanted was over. So I went into this story in the presentation and the book in some detail, and also here, because it demonstrates how challenging it is to convert the theory, in this case, the precautionary principle, into practice, closing a fishery. It's a really, really difficult thing to do, to convert that theory to practice on the ground. And besides leaving personal scars, these experiences were very formative in my new career in water. In other stories in the book, I draw from my time as manager of water allocation in Western Australia, and also work with CSIRO, Australia's national research organisation, looking at the future of irrigation in Northern Australia and how we should go about making decisions upon it. And several lessons stood out from that. The first one is that water allocation is extremely complex and difficult. And you can broaden that to the whole water management. It's so complex and so difficult because it's connected with everything we do, and all of the ecosystems and all of the things we like to do as humans are connected with water. But when the pressure is on, when there's not enough water available, decisions are challenged, both administratively and politically, and decision-making needs to be sound. Ours was not. We lost 26 appeals in a row because the appeals panels found that our science was not sufficient to back up the limits we were placing on allocations, and there were some weaknesses in our decision-making processes. So in the book, I talk more about those challenges and difficulties and some of the successes and failures as we set out to fix the limited knowledge and the antiquated decision-making. Later, when I was at CSIRO, I had the opportunity to investigate just how complex this game of water management is. And just looking at 12 water plans and large licence decisions in Northern Australia, we found over 350 different factors that someone somewhere had taken into account. Over 350 different economic, social, environmental, and external factors. And so that raises a really important question, and that is, how can a decision maker possibly deal with such high levels of complexity? So further work with CSIRO then attempted to answer that question, and we zeroed in on a quote from Sriskanda Raja, a friend of mine now, in 1991, when he said that sustainability is better seen as a measure of the relationship between the community as learners and their environment, rather than an externally designed goal to be achieved. In other words, and I really love this quote, I use it in most presentations. In other words, sustainability is about collective learning. In my reflections, I do think water management has come a long way in the 20-odd years since I first got involved. There's now more focus on social and environmental outcomes. There's much more focus on human rights and incorporating Indigenous and local knowledge in decision-making, all good stuff. But the current situation is not great, and the prognosis is bleak. A huge proportion of the world's population still lacks basic water and sanitation services, so their human rights are not being met. Freshwater ecosystems globally are threatened. Biodiversity loss is horrific, both inland and on water, and yet water demand continues to rise. So we've got a massive challenge ahead. And I conclude my chapter with some thoughts on where we might go from here. And the key message really is about the need to shift from incremental improvements to transformational efforts. We need to go beyond the idea of acceptable environmental impact, even beyond the idea of sustainability, to expect that all new developments are nature and humanity positive. And we need to set timeframes for existing developments to transition to that as well. In other words, as societies, we need to place higher expectations and responsibilities on those that use public resources for private profit, such as water. Their gain should never be at the expense of communities. And this is where I think eco-civilization has hit the nail on the head, and I'm very thankful and happy to formally become part of eco-civilization just of yesterday. And that is that when human rights and the rights of nature are together and equal in our hearts and minds, and when they become what communities demand, decisions in politics and decisions in business will follow suit. Thank you.
Wonderful. And what was very interesting for me to see is that your 100 plus papers or articles or news articles, and how beautifully you brought it into 7 pages. And I was like, wow, with so many litigations and all. And what was very interesting to see when you start your write-up and out of the frying pan, I mean, that was very interesting to read. And I think from your chapter, it is also quite clear that water management most of the time is people management or probably decision management that people make. And you rightly mentioned that it took so many years to even regenerate the fish population you worked upon. But then over the 20 years, as you see the changes in the water management rightly mentioned by you, we also see the change in our consumption style. Even if we have some of the best water policies or around the world, which are now linked to climate change or climate crisis, we see that human behavior is really slow as compared to the changes in the policy. So we really have a long way to go, but I think this is a good time that I would like to read the chapter headings and then invite you both to really talk about something more about the book, because I also would like to talk about one chapter which is of my interest. The first chapter, of course, is introduction and followed by Rajni's chapter on essence of water. Then we have chapter on the unfolding story by Annette Freder King, and she really talks about grandmother and how things are looked at, and that was beautiful to read. Then we have Violeta talking about water and peace, and then we have Water, the Way Shower by Eleftheria. We have Water as Carrier of Elemental Love by Marco Nick, if I am pronouncing the name correctly. Then Promoting Green Values in Local Sports Environment by Tina Osik. And then Can India Be Vishwa, that is World Guru of Sustainability by Dr. Hariharan Chandra. Then Pra Om by Daidra McManaman. And Daidra also has his beautiful paintings and her artwork across the book chapters as spacers. And she's going to be also invited as an independent speaker for water art session sometime very soon. I'm already in talks with her. Then we have Water Management by Joseph Idigo and Circular Water Approach, as Rajni was already talking about, Circular Approach to Water Management by Elvira Navarro. Then Sustainable Investments in Water Management by Dr. Andrea Kodrin and Vicky Kafilas. Then from Rights to Water to Rights to River, as we just heard, the long story put into 7 pages by Jeff. Then we had Water Risk Reduction by Dr. Alice Bauman-Dentener. And then we have My Water Song by Bindya Bedi Charan Noron. Then we have Remember the Drops, Water as Being Spiritual Dimension of Water by Lena Klopke. If we can speak, remembering how to be again. So this is part of the Water as Being, and it was so nice to read this part because it resonated the way I try to look at water. So If Water Can Speak is by Yuko Kudo, and then Water as Communication Media by Manka Kolarek. I hope I'm pronouncing these names correctly. Please pardon me if I am not. Then the last chapter is by Water, a Truly Mysterious Being by Violeta again. And of course, the conclusion is by Violeta. So I'm going to do a second round of conversation with both of you. And maybe we start now other way around and take Jeff first to talk about, I know the book has been quite interesting to read, especially being a citizen science text. And you are a hardcore scientist as well as a transdisciplinary practitioner, Jeff. Maybe you would like to dig into one more chapter and talk about a little bit more about that chapter as well. Over to you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, look, I really like this book because it's different. It's a different author.
Yes. As a scientist, you like it because it's very easy written. That's what I liked it as well.
Yeah, I sort of work in science, but I see myself more as a policymaker dressed up as a science academic. I tend to see the world through that lens, and trying to connect policy with research and practice is really where I'm at. But what I find in this book is so good is it's an uncommon blend of science, art, and humanities. And most importantly, it's about personal stories and authors talking from the heart. And you can see the passion, the hopes, and the worries in the stories that are being told. You can feel the pain in the failures and the joy of the successes from the authors. And you get a sense that the authors have important lived experiences to inform a better future. And that's why, you know, the book has a lot to offer, because it's not your typical scientific publication, and hopefully it gets read more than most scientific publications. As I mentioned earlier, water is really complex and challenging, and it's really about managing human relationships with water. So in another sense, it's also very simple. Water is critical to all life and all human activity, and we need to refocus on that get back to, well, that's what it's really about. There's so many interesting contributions from the book, but I'd like to talk a little bit about the chapter Water and Peace by Dr. Violetta Bulk. I think in this chapter, Violetta really succinctly and so well captures the many facets of water. Memories of past days of swimming and fishing when waters were free-flowing and less polluted. The challenge of the reality of sharing rivers and groundwaters, not only within nations, but across borders. The collective responsibility we have for caring for water, and the hope that water and water diplomacy can play an important role towards global peace and prosperity, rather than being used as a weapon, as we're seeing right now. Violetta reflects on the 4 dimensions of water described by Aaron Wolf, a water diplomat: physical water, mental water, emotional water, and spiritual water, and the importance of all those 4 dimensions to understanding water better, which is a really nice way to capture it. In her chapter conclusion, that the current volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous world, there is a significant opportunity to redefine our foundational principles and a shift from mere ownership to responsible stewardship of life's most vital resources. I think that's spot on. And the old motto, never waste a good crisis, may never have been more relevant than it is today.
Okay, wonderful. Rajni, would you like to take a dig on something else in the book?
Mansee, there are so many things to discuss about
I know.
this book, apart
But
from
again,
what we have already discussed.
With the paucity of time, we have to just take the gist of the book and few things very interesting, you know. So that's why I thought it's a good idea.
Sure.
Go ahead.
So in all honesty, it's not possible for me to pick just one. And I'll tell you why. Because as I said that I'm learner, I'm still at a very preliminary phase of learning. And each write-up offers something very, very unique, like Jeff also said. And I'm very happy, first of all, that Jeff really loved this book. He liked this book because he doesn't find it a typical scientific publication. So for example, we received a beautiful song about water from Dr. Bindya Bedi, which expresses human emotions very, very beautifully. On the other hand, Jeff shared his extensive experience working with fisheries management and water allocation. He presented his write-up in the form of case study that provides a tremendous insight into the challenges, system, planning, decision-making within organizations, departments. And similarly, the book is with me. You were talking about, Dr. Haran Chandra's Can India Be the Vishwa Guru of Sustainability? I really loved it because, first of all, this is very relatable to me. This is something which I can think of, which I have seen. And reading his article was just like watching a documentary, actually, because the moment he says something, you can instantly imagine, yes, this happened on Ghats. That's how we Indians are. That's how our belief system is. He produces extensive data of everything. So really, in terms of information, his article is full of information. If anybody is interested in learning about Indian history and the role of water, I think one should focus on this article a lot. I'm sure people would love it. Similarly, every article is beautiful. I said that because last year we held a series on circular economy, so now I do understand about circular economy a little bit. So I could really appreciate Elvira's article on circular approach on water management. Wonderful,
Mm.
wonderful writing. And then Yuko Kudo, one of our colleagues, who has written about if water can speak, remembering how to be again. So all these articles are incomparable. One cannot compare with,
Course. Of course.
no, there is no comparison possible. And other thing that I would love to focus on a bit of challenging part, rather I
Yes,
would say
I
a
will come
learning,
to that.
yeah, a
Yes, I
learning
will come
journey,
to
I would
that.
say.
Yeah, of
So
course.
definitely it was a very enriching journey filled with very exciting phases, sometimes a bit of nervousness, a bit of anxiety, sometimes a bit of, you can say, you have to be very resilient in these things because it needs constant
Yeah,
persuasion.
I had a question on this. How do you manage to
Yeah,
writing with authors from so many continents with so
yeah,
many cultural difference, and then
yeah,
also very different writing style, thought process. But
absolutely.
I think the series could have given you some idea to how to put it together as you use the word creating. So
Yeah.
yes, what were the challenges also to come up with this compilation?
Yeah. So once we receive the contribution, the actual challenges begin because editing contributors' contributions from writers coming from different parts of the world, different continents, different cultural background, brought unique challenges. Each author's perspective and style of writing that required very careful handling of emotions. At the same time, the style of English writing and the kind of terminologies they use. So whenever I had a slight doubt, I needed to go back to that author to confirm whether if my interpretation of their message is correct or not. And
Mm-hmm.
furthermore, sitting with the designer to effectively integrate the different concepts along with a beautiful artwork. You might be knowing that
Yes.
Deirdre generously contributed her 16,
Yes, I'm aware
17
of it. And I'm
exhibits.
in
Yeah,
contact with her to
beautiful
get her to
artwork.
present her
Yeah,
other work as well.
absolutely. So that accompanied each chapter. And that definitely required meticulous communication to ensure that the
Absolutely.
visual enhancement, I mean,
With the
nothing gets
chapter.
overshadowed. Nothing should get
Yes,
overshadowed. At the same time, it should, complement to each other. So that
mm,
was the idea. And I think the most challenging part, which Violeta took on herself, that was securing permission, sponsorship, copyrights, and library numbers for both print and ebook version. Because the book got published in Slovenia, and Dr. Violeta managed all these steps locally, and so there were multi-step process involved, coordinating efforts to complete each phase smoothly, making it happen. But yes, like if there is a challenge, there is a learning. If there is no challenge, there is no learning. I always believe in it. So
absolutely. In fact, I was actually keen to have Violet to discuss this, and she was the first person I reached actually to talk about the book. And she was first of all unavailable, and she actually said that yes, will be better if all other contributors also speak about the book, because we had a small conversation about it when I invited her as a solo speaker in
right.
Women for Water.
Yeah, Mansi, I want to highlight one more point. People
Mhm.
who aspire to create books based on webinar, especially
Mhm.
when
We are writing, by the way, we are also
okay,
doing, so I
okay,
would like
okay.
to
So
hear that.
here the one of the most challenging part which I forgot to highlight is to ensure whether the contribution we are receiving has already been published elsewhere. The kind of images which are being shared, do they have any copyright or they're copyright free, or do we need to seek any permission? At the same time, all these legal issues we have to ensure whether the author has complete right on the contribution or not, because you don't want to land into any sort of trouble once the book
Absolutely.
gets published. So all these things we have to ensure it time and again, okay, just to know whether the image the author is sharing, does it have any copyright, or do we need to seek permission? Things like that. So that's very
Very
important
nicely.
thing. And country to country, these laws, legalities, they change. So it at times
That
it
is
becomes
further
very
adding.
complex. Yeah, at times it becomes very complex process to understand from legal point of view also. Yeah,
Mm. From the time you had all the series of talks and to the time when you had the book on hand,
yeah.
what was the timeline, if I may understand? Because right now we are compiling three of our themed series from W for W,
That's very brave of you.
biodiversity, lakes and ponds, and riverscape. So we had these sessions like 11, 12 sessions, and now we are compiling them. And yes, but we are not really reaching out to the authors to rewrite their speech. We are writing them, and I think then we are going to send it to them to see if they agree with it, and we are just going to publish it as their work, acknowledging it as their work. We are at a nascent stage, but I think for me it was important to have this session also to understand these nuances. But luckily all authors are from India, so at least one part of the challenge will be taken care. So one law will apply, but it will be also like, when our speakers are going to give us feedback, or if they have any objection, I don't know. I'm sure you also went through all those things when they will give, and the timeline, if they give feedback on time, or because all these are busy people, that's another managing time with them is another issue. But at this point, talking about the challenge, I also wish to read the thing which I really liked the most, apart from liking the book as well. And that is by Yuko Kudo, If the Water Can Speak. Because when I'm giving public talks, I'm always talking about think about water body as yourself. So I would like to read that and take it further with our final round of conversation. So I'm reading from Yuko Kudo's work, If Water Can Speak, Remembering How to Be Again. So before I speak about her work, it is also nice to really give a brief about who Yuko Kudo is, so that it makes it much, human to talk about her. Yuko Kudo is a native Japanese multidimensional artist based in New York. She uses art and storytelling for community. Through her work as a photographer, she has appeared in Forbes and Time magazine, among other media outlets. So I'm going to leave it here and just jump to the work which she has portrayed in the book. If water can, and I quote, if water can speak, would water speak to us? How would we know if that's water speaking? What about the voice sound like? If water can speak, would the Pacific Ocean and bottled water speak the same language? How would the Gulf with a spilled oil express the pain? What's on mind of tsunami and flood when they are forming? If water can speak, would the ocean tell us what it's like to be connected all around the world? How would the icebergs and glaciers know that they are the same but different? How would rain feel about falling down from the sky and soaking into the earth? If water can speak, what would water tell us? How much do we want to know the truth? What if we have been all wrong? If water can speak, how would you do? And I end the quote here. And it was really very heart touching for me, because I am also always going and asking people questions, because I don't have answers to many of these which Yuko is also asking in this poem. So let me just take the last round of questions, or any comments which we can make from the book. But I want to reach out to you, Jeff, about working with, I'm sure you have worked a lot of time with, scientific community, and working together, writing scientific articles, and now especially as a journal editor, I'm sure you are constantly in that scientific domain of writing things. How was it to really write something out of the scientific domain and getting into writing a very, I say a layperson language or a high school language? That's what I usually use as a term, and interact with people from across the world to make this composition come together. What kind of opportunities and challenges did you realize while you were part of this collective.
Yeah, thanks. I guess for me personally, it's harder for me to write in scientific language than write in other ways.
Okay.
I've had to learn that, and it doesn't come that naturally to me. I've had to learn how to be
Okay.
a publisher because most of my background was in public policy. I didn't really publish.
Okay.
And so
I
I
can
had to
relate
learn to
with it.
do
I
that.
have same problem. I can't write scientific, so
Right.
better.
So yeah, so it's not that side of it's not a problem. I think finding the time is the problem, of course, but that goes for everybody involved in water. We're so busy and we need to stay strong personally and institutionally to make sure we allocate resources to building the sort of collaborations that put this together, because that's where we can really, the big opportunity is in the shared learning and the development of collective wisdom, and that comes from sharing challenges and experiences and learning from your own successes and failures and that of others. And I've been really fortunate that I've studied or worked in or visited or collaborated with people from most parts of the world. And as you mentioned, including running new water education for the participants from 70 countries. And there's 2 or 3 really important messages that stand out for me from that. The first one is that while there are variations, the core challenges around the world are generally quite similar. It's how we deal with those challenges in the local context that makes our responses different. Secondly, if we keep our eyes and our ears and our hearts and our minds open, there's absolutely an opportunity to learn from everywhere. And thirdly, the most effective form of learning is peer-to-peer sharing of challenges, experiences, and lessons. I have no doubt about that. It comes very clearly through all the students and participants I work with. No doubt about it from my own perspective. And it just seems that learning from your peers is really a more effective way to learn. So working collectively provides that opportunity for shared learning and the development of that collective wisdom. And a really important part of that is trust. And once that trust develops in a collaboration, in a team, it provides the opportunity to share stories of the failures. And you don't get that enough. We don't talk about failure enough because, as we've all mentioned, that's where the biggest learning is from. And we don't talk about that enough. The best conferences I ever attended were decades ago Australian Fisheries Management conferences where they had a session dedicated to talking about failures. And
Wow.
You don't see that in conferences, but it was such a powerful session. Every conference it was brilliant. I'd love to establish a conference that only talks about failures.
Oh, that I will come there. Definitely, I will join.
So there's one, COVID was really awful and terrible and devastating, but a couple of good things come out from it. And one was that there's now widespread recognition and acceptance and support for collaborating with people all around the world. And that is a really big step forward.
That's true. So Rajni, final remarks from you. We are inching towards the closure, but I still would like to have some final words and also something very interesting from the book. But over to you, Rajni.
First of all, I really loved what Jeff stated just now, that he would love to focus on values because values are the base of everything. In fact, whatever we learn through our formative years, that becomes our character. And after some time, depends on your flexibility and depends on your personality style. But in general, it is difficult to adapt to a new system, new environment, and new learnings. So whatever the earlier we learn, the better it is for everyone, and good things, actually good things. And then we understand that the value of morality, we understand value of everything good that our parents, teacher taught once when we were child. And this age we understand all those things. So I think, Jeff, you would be definitely doing a wonderful, wonderful job for humanity, for everyone, if you have this kind of proposal of organizing a conference. And I would definitely love to be part of that. Don't forget me. If not as a speaker, I would be there as a listener. I would be there to cheer you, to cheer the ideas. And I always believe, regardless of the nation you are in, it is always a dual responsibility. It is not just government agencies, institutions' responsibility, it is individual responsibility as well, to manage things well, to manage water well, to keep sanitation. So you cannot put just responsibility on one body and putting all the blames, accusations that you are responsible. No, begin this change from you. Change should begin from you. So I think what I observe in my country and what I have observed in other countries, I was recently in Japan, and I understood, even dustbins were not easily available in Japan. Still, the country was so spick and span, so neat, because of the culture they have developed over a period of time. So I think that's very important thing. So yeah, that's what I wanted to lay emphasis on. Mansi, you are mute. Mute.
Sorry.
Mansi,
Yes,
you, yeah.
I did realize I was mute because I did read If Water Can Speak by Yuko Kudo. I'm really tempted to end this conversation with the song, which is written by, of course, Bindya Bedi Charan Noron. And the title is My Water Song. But as a visual, I would again give a few lines about Bindya Bedi Charan Noron. She's a linguist employed with a diplomatic mission in New Delhi and is an author, passionate poet, biotherapist, social worker, and educationist. And of course, rest of it is in the book. But I would like to not sing, but because I didn't know what was the tune which is planned by her, but at least I can recite it as a poem and through her words. So I quote, "Water speaks and tells me, get up, move, my beautiful lover. Behold, the winter of scarcity is over. It has rained aplenty and left flowers bloom in the enriched soil. It is time for a sing-song. The voice of peacocks can be heard in our land. The groves are laden with mangoes. The flowering vines exude perfume. Get up, come, come, my beautiful beloved, my little brown rock, chat hiding in the cleft of rocks, the Indian swiftlet in the hidden cliffs. Let me see your face. Let me hear your chirpy chorus. For your voice is sweet and your face enchanting. Water is abundance and flows to nourish women, men, and children. The earth sings in unison with water." And the quote ends. So I think that's a beautiful way to even end the session with such wonderful song and also poem. And of course, the wonderful conversation I had with you, Jeff and Rajni. And I hope people are going to download this book. The link is there. I see quite a few people on live there watching us. So I hope you also get an access to the book because the chat is available also on our YouTube. And thank you so much, Jeff and Rajni, for the wonderful session. And I hope you enjoyed this conversation as it was meant to be, that Fridays have to be very light and yet fruitful. And I look forward to having your future associations with us. But before we end, I also wish to announce the future sessions, which is a ritual which we do here. I know we are going until the end of December, so at least that many sessions are going to happen. But this is also the moment I should thank all our past participants who have attended our sessions, and also all our speakers. More than 600 speakers have spoken on our platform, and it is an online open repository of water knowledge, which is available for everyone to access. So next week, the Friday Waters is on Friday Water Arts, and that is on November 19th at 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. IST. We are discussing living fossils, the boats of Bengal, with Dr. Swarup Bhattacharya, a very renowned artist, and he's going to showcase his artwork, which is going all over the world with his boat making. And next week, our signature series, Wednesdays for Water. Jeff, this might be quite interesting for you. That is on November 20 at 5 p.m. IST. Do join for a discussion with speakers from Australia and Pakistan. We have optimizing biology-driven water cycles and climate. And the week after Wednesdays for water is equally interesting for you because, Jeff, we are talking about river rights and responsibilities of citizens in India, and that's on November 27th. We shall continue with Monday Munching and Musing with Women for Water. If you know any woman who is doing exemplary work, do reach out to us and share her information. Or if there is any other person who wants to talk about the role of women in the water sector, we are very appreciative of their contribution as well. That happens on Monday, but coming Monday, we are not having Monday session. And we are going to touch Monday very soon. Do circulate the information to others, and also keep checking our website www.w4w.in for more information. But for now, thank you so much, all of you. Please take care and see you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much,
Thank you so
Mansee.
much for having us. Yeah, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Rajni. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
It's a pleasure.